It is Friday, June 5th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a seminar on jiu-jitsu, Get Your Ass Kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Friday. Not an actual physical one, unfortunately. And there were actually people at the place the seminar was being broadcast from that were training physically. I would have liked to have been one of them, but unfortunately, I'm a couple hundred miles away from where that was happening. So, we just had to deal with what chair we had. And I did have an opportunity to interface with the professor who taught it, and I got probably my one question answered by him, and my confidence in my ability in jiu-jitsu, it's a thing that kind of like comes and goes, and it's really something that is that cycle is a lot faster when I'm actually training, where I'll go through a peak and a low and a peak and a low and a peak and a low, and usually it's dependent upon other things, what my diet's been like that week, what my sleeping habits have been like that week, how much more or less have I done other exercises, and honestly, I usually do better in there when I'm exercising even more than normal. But anyway, so yeah, I go through a lot of doubt issues, with regard to my capabilities in jiu-jitsu, and so sometimes I get intimidated, just like a little bit of fear creeps in, and it's like, oh, I don't want to roll with that guy, and so I asked him about it, and he said to address it more as trying to pull off good technique, efficient technique, as opposed to trying to win the match. And to me, that's a fundamental, that's diametrically opposed to the way I usually approach jiu-jitsu. So I mean, I think that's something that I really needed to hear as far as how I approach jiu-jitsu. I will say this though, and I think it's why it rings so true with me, is that over the period, right before COVID, whatever, right before then, the last maybe, I want to say month before that, my jiu-jitsu was starting to feel really, 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 really solid. Where my movements were very, very clean, very, very efficient, and when I was transitioning from one spot to another, I'd always have a hand by a hip, or the underhook. I'd always capture the underhook really quick, and those are efficiency things. Those are clean technique kind of things, and so yeah, that stuck with me as quite true. It's another bad habit that I have, though, and I probably should have asked him about this, is closing my eyes. For some fucking reason, I don't know what it is, when I get into what I'm doing in jiu-jitsu, a lot of times I don't even have my eyes open. I can't even see what's going on. I'm rolling with the pressure, and it's a bad habit, though, because I can't see what I'm doing, because I got my eyes closed. I can't necessarily see that ankle right in front of me that I could grab, or, the wrist that I could grab, or the neck, or, something like that. I miss out on a lot of opportunities just trying to feel my way through it. And so, yeah, that's something I probably should have asked him about, but I didn't get to. Oh well. Hopefully I'll have another opportunity to talk with him, and then I'll address it then. But yeah, I think that's definitely something that I'm going to take with me the next time that I roll, is that perspective of, I'm not trying to do anything except be as clean with my technique as I possibly can, be as efficient as I possibly can, and try to see the available technique, that the thing that is available for me, instead of pushing through with the mindset of, I'm going to go for that arm bar, or maybe even going for just, keeping that in mind, that no matter what, I want to get an armbar attempt on this guy. Just one. or a specific armbar attempt. And if you don't get the opportunity for that, then you don't go for anything else. I don't know. I think that's something I'm going to mess with when I get back to doing physical classes, which I expect to be very soon. This bullshit's carried on long enough. It is time to get back to normal. I don't know. I'm starting to wonder sometimes if there aren't intent individuals trying to keep us from returning to normal. It seems like everything has just been a series to keep us off balance and from fully engaging into going back to work. And I think there's something bigger going on with that. And I think it's been mistaken by a lot of people. You know, that there is some bigger shit going on, and it's not being reported because the news is complicit in it, and it's not being done anything about because some government elements are complicit in it or whatever. And that very thing could be happening right now, and we just wouldn't know about it until it was happening right in front of us. You know, all we see is things like the stuff that's on the news, and if you actually go out into the physical public and out into the riots and all that business, then you see it, you know, up close and personal. But I don't know. I think it's going to be very, very interesting in the not-so-distant future, but I do expect it to culminate, and I do expect it to come to an end, because you can't keep doing it forever. Got to get back to making food, making stuff to sell on a shelf, making a living. And that's still got to happen. And as long as it's not happening, it's going to end up hurting people later on. That's for sure. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And you know we're going to body count, because that's just what we do. But which song? That's the question. Well, we got all of Bloodlust. And I don't want to play that. You know, I want to start off with something else today. Because, you know, there's Black Friday Always by Megadeth. And it is Friday, and so I think that's kind of appropriate. I'm going to do it. Because it's my show, I can do that kind of thing. I can change my mind. I think that's one of the things I enjoy about the way that I get to do this show. Is that I don't have any contract. I don't have any obligation to play anything that I don't want to play. I play what I want to. And so here it is. Good morning, Black Friday, First Dance here on Coin Metal. And that was Sepultura with The Hunt. Anywho, oh man, that's a bit loud. I'm going to tone that down just teeny tiny. Alright. So, as far as what else we're going to get into today. Wait a minute. Just checking something out here. No. Ah, there we go. Alright, a little bit of resolution on a thing that I was viewing earlier. It's completely unrelated to the show, so I'm just going to let it go. Anyway, as far as what we're going to get into today, I got a whole bunch of stuff that I had open here, but I wasn't sure where I wanted to start. That's not it. Yeah. I've talked about this effect, and it's been going on since crypto started, really. As soon as Bitcoin got a exchange rate in fiat currencies, the game really changed for us. And there was a significant period of time when we were mining in the dark and thinking the only possible reward for what we were doing was some sort of federal investigation and whatnot. But it turned out that that was not the case. The biggest challenge was actually getting somebody to trade something for it. And honestly, that's always the biggest challenge for any money. You know, there was a period of time where paper certificates, paper money, was expressly forbidden. That's why we have things like pennies and nickels and dimes and dollars. These are actual measurements, weight measurements specifically, and they're relatively universal. And of course, there's always the issue with regard to metric in English, and I'm sure it had something to do with the measurements, because here in the United States we were trying to deviate from the British, and they were on the metric standard, and so we needed a different penny weight in order to have our own currency, or our own dollar weight. I think it's the dollar it started with. But so we had to create an entirely different, or use a different measuring system than the metric system in order to count all that out. So a dollar in British terms is probably a different weight, or maybe they were going by the pound. Then I don't know. Anyway, but there you go again. The pound, the British pound. Well, we weigh things in what? Pounds. In ounces of pounds and grams of ounces and so on and so forth. But the point being is the association is with a weight. A weight of what? A weight of a precious metal, be it gold or silver or platinum. And all of these things have been used to some degree at some time. I don't know about platinum, but definitely silver and gold in the minting of money. So, the idea that any medium is permanent, and that the current ones that we're circulating are the ones that we've always been circulating, far be it from the truth. There was a period of time when paper notes were actually forbidden, and it was have physical or fuck off. And so, I got this thing here. It's on Coindust.com. Money Reimagined. The ongoing crisis is stirring a crypto awakening in developing nations. So it's stirring a crypto awakening in pretty much everywhere, honestly. And this is on June 5th, 2020 at 2018 UTC. And scrolling. And scrolling. Oh, and this is an opinion piece. And this is by Michael J. Casey. Gosh, that guy looks familiar. Probably went by a pseudonym for a while. Michael J. Casey, so yes, penis. Regular readers of this column will know about the recent surge in African peer-to-peer Bitcoin transactions, now at more than 12 million a day, according to Useful Tulips. I think this and similar patterns across other emerging market regions during the COVID-19 pandemic reflect the most important cryptocurrency trend of the moment. We are a long way from mass adoption, but the circumstances driving this nascent demand in the developing world, not only for Bitcoin but also for stablecoins and other cryptocurrencies, bring the human benefits of this new form of money into stark relief. You're reading Money Reimagined, a weekly look at the technological, economic, and social events and trends that are redefining our relationship with money and transforming the global financial system. No, it's not transforming the global financial system. It's transforming global commerce between individuals. And that's a whole different premise. Anyway, you can subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what's driving this is a worldwide dollar shortage. For billions of non-Americans in places far off from the United States, now unruly cities, the U.S. currency is a vital instrument in their daily lives. But it is now scarce. If you can't get dollars and you don't trust your local currency, Bitcoin and stablecoins start to look more attractive, either as a hedge against future inflation or as a payments or remittances solution. Dollar shortages are the mirror image of the Fed's QE Infinity program and the reason it rapidly created swap lines with 16 central banks in industrialized countries in March. At that time, the pandemic had triggered a kind of global bank run into dollars. Debtors in European and Asian financial capitals who'd borrowed in dollars scrambled to buy them to cover margin calls on their collateral, which in turn sent investors racing to secure access to the same USD safe haven. As Jill Carson wrote for CoinDesk, the Fed had no choice but to, quote, turn on the taps to feed the world's demand. Note some key words in that prior paragraph. Quote, industrialized countries and, quote, financial capitals. The Fed's rescue mission might have stabilized global currency markets for now, but the Wall Street-centric structure of its policy implementation means the liquidity injections are far from evenly spread. While quantitative easing has breathed life into U.S. stocks, see below, these shortages have persisted in many emerging markets, creating serious problems in their citizens' lives. That's especially so in many formally or informally dollarized countries, where mistrust of the local currency makes the dollar the preferred unit for business-to-business transactions, savings, and large-ticket consumer payments, such as rent. This is what's happening in oil-exporting Nigeria, where the collapse in the price of crude has combined with the global dollar shortage to create a real US dollar crisis. It's no wonder that Africa's biggest economy is the biggest contributor to the pickup in the continent's peer-to-peer Bitcoin exchanges. Microtasking to survive. Consider also Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro's dictatorship has unofficially abandoned constraints on dollar usage because an evaporation in the bolivar's value has made it physically impossible for people to carry all the banknotes needed to buy groceries. Now, in the midst of the pandemic, homebound Venezuelans can't find the dollars they need. For some, Bitcoin is offering a solution. Quote, U.S. dollar bills are getting like a rare thing. It's a collectible, says journalist Javier Bastardo, who spoke to me from his electricity-challenged home in Caracas. So, people are finding new ways to avoid the depreciation of the bolivar. One way they are doing this, Bastardo said, is by, quote, doing microtasks connecting to a website where you can earn 10 satoshis for doing different things. Yes, crowdsourced microtasking, by which companies get large numbers of people to collectively teach human intuition to machine learning algorithms. Think of those sign-on requests to identify traffic lights is now a money earner for people in the developing world. Developments in crypto technology have enabled this. Previously, on-chain Bitcoin fees, currently around $3 per transaction, were too high to sustain the kinds of micropayments made for these many small tasks. But advances in Layer 2 technology, Lightning Network, which allows for secure off-chain transactions, no it doesn't, now mean that sites such as Stack can affordably provide these money-earning services for their customers. Stack users in the Philippines and Argentina can earn enough satoshis to buy smartphones offered on the site. That's interesting. Stablecoins opening. Developing country demand for Bitcoin, however, still seems less based on its role as a payments vehicle than on its appeal as a gold-like speculative asset and store of value. An especially valuable proposition in places threatened with hyperinflation. What, though, of the challenge of day-to-day payments and remittances in dollar-scarce countries? This is where stablecoins could be stepping up. Latin American wallet provider Ripio offers evidence that CEO Sebastian Serrano says active user demand for the platform's stablecoin offerings, USDC and DAI, grew tenfold in the last quarter. The reason seems pretty clear. People want what they're used to. Quote, what people want in Nigeria or in Venezuela isn't really Bitcoin, but the U.S. dollar, says Alejandro Machado, a colleague of Carlson's at the Open Money Initiative. Quote, so if you can have an asset that mimics or behaves like dollars, perhaps we have a solution. For Machado, the solution doesn't lie in Ethereum-based stablecoins like Tether, USDC, or DAI, but in leveraging the liquidity that he says only Bitcoin can provide. He co-founded Value for Venezuelans, which doesn't create stability through a reserve model like Tether or USDC, or through a smart contract-based collateral system like DAI, but synthetically, through a sophisticated strategy for trading and hedging Bitcoin. Value offers access to a digitally executed contract whose value holds steady against the dollar. Yeah, it's going to fail. These various solutions are landing in emerging markets that are, once again, reeling from problems that emanate from industrialized countries. Whether they'll achieve mainstream usage rates remains to be seen. The $8 million a day turnover for Bitcoin trades in Nigeria, for example, although doubled that of 2 months ago, is a tiny drop within the country's $420 billion economy. Still, there appears to be a clear and broad-based uptrend in demand. It speaks to what many of us have long argued, that the most obvious use cases for cryptocurrency lie in the developing world. No, I disagree. I think this and similar patterns across other emerging market regions during the COVID-19 pandemic reflect the most important cryptocurrency trend of the moment. We are a long way from mass adoption, but the circumstances driving this nascent demand in the developing world, not only for Bitcoin but also for stablecoins and other cryptocurrencies, bring the human benefits of this new form of money into stark relief. A bifurcated American dream. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, with its specially tailored section of 30 important company stocks, was designed by its founders as a snapshot of the American economy. It's one reason why the performance of the Dow is often used as a proxy measure of U.S. prosperity, a rather simplified encapsulation of the American dream. So it's worth asking, how has this most famous of Wall Street indicators done over the past 2 weeks? Between May 25th, the Memorial Day holiday on which Minneapolis cop Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd, and Thursday, June 4th, the Dow gained 7.4%, marking the best 50-day performance for U.S. stocks ever. And now, after some surprising good unemployment numbers, they are up again as of Friday afternoon, up by more than 930 points. Interesting. Let's put this into context. Within the past 9 trading days, millions swarmed into American cities to protest the unending injustice and racial inequality that this crime represented. There were violent responses from some members of the security forces and alarming acts of destruction and theft from some of the protesters. While as the nation's political divisions were deepened by a president who, I'm not going to read that part because I don't believe it, yet the stock market was up. Well, why not? I'm not going to fucking censor them. They don't censor me, I don't censor them. Meanwhile, as the nation's political divisions were deepened by a president who seems to want to fan the flames, the U.S. death toll from COVID surpassed 100,000. Yet the stock market was up. CNBC pundits said on a hope of a stronger than expected economic recovery. I have an alternative theory. Investors know that the longer America is gripped by an existential crisis, the more money the Fed will pour into financial markets. I'm not sure how enriching hedge funds that at this time will help overcome this country's divisions. It will only underscore the failure of our financial system and the need for an alternative. It's time for a new system. Yeah, kinda. The Global Town Hall. KYCing our video calls thanks to COVID-19 lockdowns, the world now lives on Zoom. Not really. So it's no wonder eyebrows were raised when company CEO Eric Yuan this week said non-paying customers wouldn't get privacy-protecting end-to-end encryption, citing a presentation to investors this past week. Yuan said, quote, "Free users for sure. We don't want to give that because we also want to work together with the FBI, with local law enforcement, in case some people use Zoom for a bad purpose." There were understandable privacy concerns among the crypto community, although Abra CEO Bill Barheit pointed out that Zoom, which currently has no ad model or other means of monetizing free users, could never afford the expensive exercise of encrypting everybody. What struck me, though, was how the arrangement made this information platform's customer relationship look like that of a bank. If you buy a Zoom subscription, it won't be able to snoop on your calls, but it will know who you are. Sound familiar? Know your customer, or KYC rules, are the bedrock of how banks serve law enforcement's efforts to catch money launderers. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised. Money is just a form of information anyway. Forking the meme. Memes can be one of the most entertaining things on the internet, until you become one, of course. What started as a footnote in the larger protests surrounding the killing of George Floyd, a photo of a person whom we can only conclude is a Bitcoin bro, or at least aspires to be one, held up a sign with the slogan, "Bitcoin will save us," became a cautionary tale. The image predictably went viral, drawing the ire of people inside and outside of the crypto community for pushing crypto gospel at precisely the wrong time. That would have been the end of it, except someone in that community photoshopped the face of Bitcoin proponent Niraj Agrawal, himself widely thought of as crypto Twitter's meme king, onto the head of the protester, giving the viral image a second, stronger life. Not sharing or linking here to prevent further infection. For those in the know, it was a cleverly ironic visual twist, but with so many Twitter users with high follow counts liking, retweeting, or commenting on the image, it inevitably veered over the edge of context collapse when it reached a wider audience. As Agrawal himself noted, the proliferation of the doctored image probably wasn't good for him or Bitcoin, a reminder that on social media, with great influence comes great responsibility. God, that's good, but I have to hand it to Francis Coppola. That was a superb biblical metaphor in her CoinDesk op-ed about why Libra caved into regulators' demands and ended its currency basket model. Citing the Tower of Babel story, the writer compared Facebook and its fellow Libra Association members to those, quote, upstart humans who challenged God, aka government, by building something that would, by reaching to heaven, threaten his authority. Taking the analogy further, Coppola said that a currency is like a language, which it very much is. Just as God punished the humans by making them speak mutually incomprehensible languages, so did the powers of government force Libra to break up its operation into multiple independent stablecoins. Here's the thing. As per Jack Miles' book, God, a Biography, about the shifting depiction of Old Testament's God as a character, it's we humans who decide what God is like. Humans made God in their likeness, not vice versa. We do the same with our governments, with varying degrees of democratic participation. Just as we have sometimes made God a benevolent, loving figure, we've occasionally produced benign governments. But we've also allowed terrible, malevolent leaders to take power, much like the spiteful God that Miles documents in numerous parts of his wonderful deconstruction. Now's a time when we humans should be rewriting the character of our government, or more specifically, the governance of our financial system. Actually, we are, and we're not asking for permission. And while Libra sure ain't perfect and could allow its owners to exploit the people they're supposed to serve, it has the potential to contribute to a better system. In fact, with those otherwise independent stablecoins built on Libra's open source interoperable codebase, they may well end up talking to each other. God and governments will always be around, but there are times when we need to reimagine him/her/them. This is one of those times. No, I don't think we need to reimagine government. I think we need to reimagine what government should do. Because a lot of us have been saying things like there should be a law for a long time, not thinking about like the idea that there could be additional fallouts that we never imagined or even intended associated with that change. And so, when it comes to talk about, we need to change things. Yes, we do need to change things. It's completely obvious that we do. In my mind, at least, the biggest problem here is that we expect government to do too much. And so invariably government has to charge us to do these things, and invariably as a case of the fact that government is doing something about it, it has to exist. In everything that government has ever been given to regulate, whatever problem it is that they're regulating becomes worse. The DEA comes along. All of a sudden we've got cocaine cartels. We didn't have those before. We had a DEA, but a significant enough drug problem has to exist to justify a multi-billion-dollar budget every single year. See, if you don't have a problem, then you don't have the need for the enforcers, and so you can't justify the budget. So you have to create a problem that requires you to have a lot of enforcers that will justify a big budget. Because then you'll have money to misappropriate and spend on shit that you really want to do. And that's happened as a product of the drug war. That we've funded all kinds of interests and how should I say it? What's that word? Initiatives that were neither productive for us or even healthy for the economy at large. But we were forced to entertain them because they were passed under mandate of government. Government said, hey, we're going to do this. They had no business telling us what plants to grow and what plants to use and how to use. Oh, fuck you. It grows out of the ground. I fucking watered it. I put sun. I made sure it had sun. I put some nutrients on it. I dry it out and I smoke it. It's my plant. I do that with it. Fuck you. If it produces strawberries, I eat the strawberries. I don't starve. That's me. Fuck you. And I think that people are going to be looking more and more at the regulatory crisis that we're facing and seeing it for what it really is. I was watching a video today, and it's kind of misleading in the way that it was presented, because it gave the impression that a lot of windows were broken out in downtown New York. Like all the really ritzy places, like a Puma store and the Nike store and the Microsoft store, they're all boarded up. But I noticed something. They weren't boarded up because there was all kinds of battle damage on the front. Like a riot went through there and they broke all the windows and shit. No. It would have been literally impossible to replace all of the glass to the pristine state that you could see it in from this guy's vehicle. The amount of money it would have cost, it would have been a logistical nightmare just trying to get all of the glass down to New York to replace it. So, my feeling was that those places were already boarded up. They were boarded up before COVID. And they were boarded up because the people that were operating them could not afford ops, because they were not making enough money. They did not have enough organic business coming in their door to justify keeping the lights on, much less keeping the place staffed. So they boarded up the windows and just were like paying rent and basic utilities on the side until the fucking economy recovered or something. But see, I think that what I was watching, like I said, not all of the businesses were boarded up. He kept saying all of the businesses were boarded up, but I could see there was restaurants and stuff that was open in between. And it leads me to believe that that's the organic economy that can be sustained enough to justify retaining a physical presence in New York City. There's still a few of them out there that, they can justify keeping the lights on because they have enough dollars coming in, enough business circulating through them that they can cover rent, they can cover electricity, they can cover their insurance, they can cover all their licenses and all the fees and all that other bullshit. And so they are staying open. Whereas Nordstrom's and fucking all these other places that were boarded up, they couldn't justify it. And so they had to board up. Neiman Marcus, Rolex. And this guy was trying to say that Rolex was broken into and they stole all those watches. No, the rest of the building was fine. Nobody's even been there. It's just boarded up. And like I said, it's probably been boarded up for months. Probably even months before COVID. I've said this multiple times on the show, that I have felt that what we are experiencing right now is a lag of two things. Number one, a change in trade relationships with China and others who were previously supplying us with a lot of stuff that we weren't having to make. That changed. And number two, there's been a series of regulations passed, and it takes time for them to work their way out. To where you find out whether you're taxing too hard or taxing not enough. Well, I think that we were taxing too hard the whole time, and everybody that was involved in receiving those taxes just completely fucking ignored it, because, well, fuck, the tax is coming in. Who cares that they're paying it with a fucking credit card? The money's still coming in. So don't worry about it. We're going to have our in-office masseuse come at 1:30 on Wednesday and take care of us all. Everything will be just fine. Well, now you're working from home, and there ain't no masseuse coming to your home. And you're probably going to get your hours reduced even more. And I saw various little cues that led me to believe this was coming. Okay, is that I know people that live in, or that work in state government in various positions, and progressively they've been pushed further and further to home and doing telecommuting. Their hours were reduced. They were open 5 days a week, but now they're going to be open 4 days a week. They're only going to be operating 4 days a week, and 6 days. I mean, at 6 hours, not 10. That they're actually going to be open. So, those kind of things tell me that somebody's having to go through the budget and find shit to cut. And they're having to do that because the amount of money they have coming in is not enough to cover all of their expenses, all of their obligations, all of their liabilities. And because of that, they're having to reduce the load. I warned a couple people that are in that position now that was coming. I'm like, it is coming. You gotta make some adjustments now, because it ain't always gonna be like this. You ain't always gonna have a fucking masseuse coming in on fucking Wednesday and doing everybody at your office. It's just not gonna happen. Well, here we are. They're probably wondering whether or not they're ever gonna go back to their office. And they probably aren't. And by next year, their budget will probably be entirely penciled out on the state's budget or county's budget or city's budget or whoever's budget they're on. They're probably going to get penciled out. Just because we've had a whole lot of government doing a whole lot of nothing. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And I've been wanting to throw some gizmochi in the mix. And so here it is, Burn, here on Coin Metal. And that was Down with Stone the Crows. And yeah, I let it run just a little bit over there. I was doing a little social media stuff and just had to pause a moment and get it resolved. You know how it is. Anyway, so as far as what we're going to get back into here, not that one. We already went through that one. Oh, yeah, this. This was especially disappointing, although not at all surprising. I kind of expected that this particular exchange would go this route, and so yeah, I'm not entirely disappointed that it happened. I mean, I'm disappointed that it happened, but I'm not disappointed in that I knew it probably would happen, and probably sooner than other organizations. And this is on theblockcrypto.com. Coinbase wants to sell blockchain analysis software to the IRS and DEA a year after its Neutrino acquisition. And this is by Michael McSweeney. So yes, penis. And this is authored June 5th, 2020 at 4:19 p.m. EDT. Coinbase wants to sell blockchain analytics software to 2 U.S. government agencies, according to public documents. Records obtained by the block show that the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, or Administration, I keep saying agency, it's Administration, DEA, and the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, intend to buy licenses from Coinbase for an analytics platform called Coinbase Analytics. Documents related to the purchases by the IRS and DEA were published in April and May, respectively. Notably, the IRS document draws a connection between Coinbase Analytics and Neutrino, an intelligence agency that Coinbase controversially purchased in 2019. The acquisition drew controversy due to its founder's involvement in the Italian spyware firm Hacking Team, and Coinbase ultimately said that it would part ways with team members associated with Hacking Team. The IRS document explains, quote, "As law enforcement techniques evolve and other cryptocurrencies gain acceptance, criminals are using other types of cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin, to facilitate their crimes. In addition to the Bitcoin blockchain, Coinbase Analytics, the FKA Neutrino, allows for the analysis and tracking of cryptocurrency flows across multiple blockchains that criminals are currently using. Coinbase Analytics also provides some advanced law enforcement sensitive capabilities that are not currently found in other tools on the market. This action will result in a firm fixed price purchase order, period of performance, 1 base year from data of award with 1 12-month option. Public records indicate that Coinbase has not been officially granted the awards, and the company does not appear in queries submitted to usaspending.gov, a directory for government contract awards. According to this database page, Coinbase's registration to offer products and services to the U.S. government became active on April 28th, with an expiration date of April 13th, 2021. A request for comment sent to the Department of Justice was not returned by press time. A representative of Coinbase was not immediately available to comment when reached. It is unclear how much Coinbase would be paid for the licenses. The DEA document includes a subheader explaining that it is, quote, required for limited source acquisitions over $10,000, but not exceeding $250,000. indicating that the amount paid would fall in that range. The documents illustrate how the two agencies want to apply Coinbase's platform to their respective investigative toolkits. In the case of the IRS, the software would be utilized by the tax authority's Criminal Investigations Cyber Crimes Unit. The DEA document states, quote, Coinbase Analytics, CA, cryptocurrency intelligence tool, provides investigators with identity attribution and de-anonymities virtual currency addresses domestically and internationally. CA is known for its accuracy of attribution, which includes some of the most conservative heuristics used in commercial blockchain tracing tools. This is critical in avoiding false positives during target identification. The DEA document further explains that, quote, without this advanced tool, DEA would be unable to conduct on-the-spot verification of money movement, and this is the least expensive tool on the market and has the most features for the money. On the latter statement, no price point is given. A DEA limited source document is dated February 11th, 2020, and according to the contract directory, it was originally published on May 18th. As noted, quote, all communication regarding this posting shall be in writing and received on or before 10 a.m. Eastern Time, May 22, 2020. The IRS document was posted on April 7th. Coinbase Analytics is not a publicly acknowledged offering. However, the term appeared in a since-removed job listing that sought a senior front-end manager. Results for that job listing still appear via Google search, as do results for a product manager role. Interesting. Yeah, honestly, if I find that all of this is fundamentally stupid. You're going to waste a whole bunch of money tracking a whole bunch of transactions. I mean, unless you have a specific individual in mind and a specific treatment for, like, how you're trying to document the flow of their funds or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm not a terribly sophisticated person, but with myself, or between myself and even known associates of myself, I could probably generate a completely pseudonymous network to be conducting transactions in, only part of which would even be digital. Only part of which would even interface with any telecommunications network. And so, you know, this idea that they're going to track all this stuff and they're going to be able to... No. The people they're going to find that are doing transactions are going to be average everyday people. And they're going to be doing retail transactions and, of course, savings and loans and that kind of stuff. But the vast majority of them aren't going to be participating in quote-unquote criminal activity. So the fact that the government should be involved at all is... they don't need to be involved at all. And invariably what's going to happen is the same thing that started happening with Libra. And I believe Facebook will be the last one to actually ditch the idea of Libra, but they will eventually ditch it. Because the regulatory compliance just for the NYDFS alone would be so much more expensive than they could ever hope to reap off of all the little fucking metadata bullshit. No. The compliance cost, just the application fees for the fucking licenses to operate within certain jurisdictions are going to prove to be too onerous for even Facebook to deal with. Because there's just not going to be enough fucking business there for them. You know, and if they were planning to, you know, all of their financials are going to shift over to Libra, all the no, throw that shit out the window. That shit ain't going to happen. And like I said, have been commenting on Facebook and Libra since probably even before they officially announced the idea. Just the idea of them trying to do something like that. The suggestion had come up multiple times before they actually drew together the Libra Association and all that other shit. And they were already showing us through the white paper structure of like who's going to be doing what, and they've got separate entities doing separate things in separate jurisdictions. They're playing fucking regulatory arbitrage. Where it's impossible in one jurisdiction, so they hand off the duties to a sub-outlet of their own, but who is going to reside in a different regulatory jurisdiction, and where it makes it perfectly legal or tax-free or frictionless or whatever to do it in this other place. Only they're going to want to serve a global customer base. And in needing to do so, it will invariably expose them to the same kind of regulatory cruft that they're trying to avoid by doing this regulatory arbitrage. And it's exactly these tools that entities like Coinbase are both developing and acquiring. Is that they want to be able to license the ability to track all of your transactions through them to your government. But what happens when you're transacting in coins that aren't even available on Coinbase? All that power goes away. Bye-bye. No more. And you can rest assured, as more monetary value gets tied up in these networks, the more interest there will be on them. And so, the mark that Coinbase wants to be 100% compliant, and now specifically wants to be able to monetize your data and the tracking of your transactions and whatnot to government entities. I mean, this is exactly why Bitcoin was meant to operate as it does, because we knew well in advance that any centralized authority, such as a corporate entity or an individual, that person could be taxed, that person could be coerced, that person could be imprisoned, that person could be killed. It's the same thing with a company. Coinbase can be shut down. All of their licenses can be revoked, making them a criminal entity, and they could all be thrown behind bars. And I'm sure at some point or another they think that they're further from that than full adoption, but they're not. They're much closer to that still. Even on the log books, there are enough obscure, how should I say this, interpretations on the books that Coinbase could be shut down legally right now. And it's one of the reasons why they comply at all, because they can be shut down. But you can't shut down Bitcoin in the same way. You would have to stop every single miner and every single node on the planet. And personally, I don't believe that's ever going to happen, mostly because it's in people's interest for it to not happen. And see, this is why I keep driving the interest to be a miner. Before I got kicked off of Twitter, I put this hashtag everywhere, be a miner. Because that's the role you're supposed to be playing in these cryptocurrencies. Not some fucking serf dependent on a third-party entity to hand you what the truth is. No, you got a copy of the fucking truth locally, on site, that you can refer back to at any time. No trust involved. And that's the aspect that they've been trying to take away. And they don't talk about it in articles, and they don't talk about it in regulation, because they know that they can't stop you from writing code. They can't stop you from running code that you want to run on your hardware. They cannot stop that, and because they cannot, they don't even bother to address it. Because, effectively it would create way too many more problems than would otherwise exist. or that otherwise do exist. But yeah, these barriers for entry that they're trying to create within cryptocurrencies through these movements, again, it's just a different form of pressure, and it'll just cause the traffic, the monetary traffic, to go elsewhere, back outside of those regulatory frameworks. And I don't believe that is going to change at any time in the future. That's why I've also advocated for governments to simply give up on that idea. Forget about trying to get us to comply with taxation. Forget about it. It's not going to fucking happen. And the harder you squeeze, the more monetary flow is going to go outside of your regulatory capture zones. You know, you might still be able to get people to pay sales tax on an item. They might still be paying excise taxes on an item. That'll keep the lights on in a few government offices. That'll keep some people employed. But like I said, the harder you push, the more opaque it's going to get. Right now it's semi-transparent. We work on public blockchains. And we work on public blockchains that interact with entities like Coinbase that are fully regulatory compliant, to the best of your knowledge. But when that is no longer profitable for us, when it costs us more to do so than to simply circumvent those steps, it'll stay where it is. As soon as it becomes more expensive to stay with Coinbase than it is to just start up a fucking miner of your own, have a copy right there that you can be transacting from, an address that you can be transacting from, you know, as soon as that becomes, the reward for that becomes more than having to deal with entities like Coinbase, who will rat you out and create pretexts for your government to steal money from you. When that becomes more expensive than starting up your own hardware and becoming a miner, then that's what you'll do. And this is how the whole of the market out there operates. You know, back when I got started in cryptocurrencies, I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have any way to establish a bank account. I became a miner, and I mined. I didn't mine a lot. I don't even think I ever managed to mine a full Bitcoin, but this is during the transition when it was going from GPUs to ASICs. And so, yeah, that was my fault. Nonetheless, I did manage to mine over half a Bitcoin. So, you know, the point being is, you don't even have to start with Bitcoin. You can start with an altcoin. You can sell those altcoins for Bitcoin, or whatever. And you know, given the metrics of what it costs you to make to do a transaction on the Bitcoin network versus altcoins, why would you do that to yourself? Why not find an altcoin that works just as well and that people will accept as money and convert to it instead, or mine it instead? These coins are here to serve us. They are not here to shackle us. They are here to serve us. They are here to return agency back to us. Sure, they can be tracked. But you know what? If you use just a little bit of your brain power and spend just a teeny tiny bit of time trying to educate yourself on how to properly use cryptocurrencies, you can avoid having to rely on somebody else having to do it for you. You can take Coinbase completely out of the decision. And for remarkably cheap, by the way. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And I got some Fear Factory playing in the background. And I wanted to play them earlier, but for whatever reason, I just didn't get to it. So let's go with that now. And what song to go with, though? No, not off of Concrete. Let's go with... Oh, there's one song on here. Oh, geez. So many good songs on this album. Let's go with Proto-Mech here on Coin Metal. And that was Testament with Nostrovia. And so, I'm coming kind of close to the end here, but I think we got just a little bit of time available here. And, we already covered that. I had something in here that I wanted to cover. I just had just enough time. No? That might be the one. It wasn't the one that might be the one too. No. Let me see. Crypto Awakening, we already covered that. Code Minnesota. Here we go. This one might bear us a little fruit. It always pays to pay attention to what's going on in other markets, because, believe it or not, there is kind of like a dynamism to where the monetary flows go, and where they'll be in a specific place at a specific time. As far as like the average concentration. So like you'll see the Dow go up, then it'll sell off. And then you'll see Bitcoin go up, and then it'll sell off, and then altcoins will go up, and then it'll sell off. And, it's a cycle. But anyway, you want to pay attention to where other people are at, because it kind of gives you an idea of what they're thinking, at least. An idea of it. Anyway, so this is on MarketWatch.com, and this is by Brett Aarons. So yes. Penis. And this is authored on June 5th, 2020. I don't know. There's been female Bretts, so I shouldn't like assume that. But I'm going to go with statistical probability here. All of the Bretts that I knew were guys. So anyway, this is on MarketWatch.com. Opinion, quote, "You should be nervous. Legendary money manager slashes stock market exposure from 55% to 25%. And this is published on June 5th, 2020 at 12:06 p.m. Eastern Time by Brett Aarons. So yes, penis. Investors, we should always get nervous when we start making too much money too easily. As a foolish youth, I once ignored that rule while speculating on interest rate futures, and got my fingers slammed in the door very quickly and very hard. Even before Friday's jobs report, which sent the stock market skyrocketing yet again, investors' cups have been running over. Our stocks and mutual funds and 401k balances have been going vertical for more than 2 months. So it's probably a good moment for a bucket of cold water. And who better to provide it than Wall Street's best-known cold water merchants, Ben Inker and Jeremy Grantham at Boston Fund Company GMO. Quote, "Uncertainty has seldom been higher. Oddly, neither has the stock market," warns Zinkler, the firm's head of asset allocation, adding that GMO slashed its stock exposure from its flagship benchmark free allocation strategy from 55% in March to just 25% by the end of April. He's already out. Holy shit. Quote, "We are in the top 10% of historical price earnings ratios for the S&P on prior earnings, and simultaneously are in the worst 10% of economic situations, arguably even the worst 1%, adds Grantham, the company's co-founder. The coronavirus pandemic is unlike past economic disasters, he said. Quote, it's totally new, and there can be no near certainties, merely strong possibilities. This is why Ben is nervous, and this is why you are nervous or should be. After the trauma of the last few months, the economic risks hardly need much repeating, but as markets soar, they are at least worth remembering. Among them, mass unemployment, major corporate bankruptcies, a prolonged economic slump, civil unrest, a quest for a vaccine that takes much longer than people hope or which is less successful than people hope. As Grantham adds, quote, but most viruses have never had a useful vaccine, and most useful vaccines have taken well over 5 years to develop, and when developed, have only been partially successful. Grantham adds that even before the crisis hit, the economy was dealing with longer-term problems, including climate change, slowing population growth in the developed world, slowing productivity gains, and, in the U.S., record public and corporate debt levels. None of this would matter so much if the stock prices were cheap and offered investors a good margin of safety, they add. But they aren't. Since the market lows in late March, the SPX 2.62% has rocketed to 38%, and the Russell 2000 Index RUT 3.79% of small U.S. stocks fell 3.79% of small U.S. stocks 43%. Major overseas indexes such as the MSCI EAFE 990,300, 1.4% developed market index, and MSCI emerging markets 891,800, 1.4%, are up by about a third. Q Alfred E. Newman Market. What? Me worry? I got this notification blinking here. Fuck you. I don't care about that right now. Investors have enjoyed the equivalent of several years' good returns in the stock market in a matter of weeks, GMO notes. By late April, most stock markets were offering dismal 7-year returns, they calculate. It's worth adding they ran the numbers over a month ago. The markets have carried on rising since then, meaning markets today offer even more grounds for caution. It is easy to dismiss GMO as doomsayers. My late friend Dan Bunting, a British money manager for many decades, used to say that the problem with all economic forecasts was, quote, the economic fundamentals always look awful. Critics note that GMO has been generally very cautious on stock markets, especially in the U.S. in recent decades. They also note its, quote, its global asset allocation and benchmark free asset allocation strategies, two key guidelines in those to in-house thinking, have underperformed their target rates of return over the past decade. On the other hand, GMO's quarterly updates remain required reading on Wall Street, even among those who are always 100% invested in stocks and 100% bullish. The analysis is not foolish, and GMO has had some spectacular successes in the past, such as anticipating the dot-com bust of 2000-2003 and the global financial crisis of 2007 through 2009, and in turning bullish at the depths of the markets in 2008 through 2009. It is at least a reminder not to give too heavily to euphoric and animal spirits after stock markets have boomed. Retail investors in particular are prone to the twin risks of getting too bullish when stocks have risen and too bearish when they are down. Meanwhile, for those wondering where a cautious skeptic should invest, GMO notes that so-called value stocks are comparatively cheap everywhere, and that emerging market stocks as a group are cheap by any reasonable measure, and best of all, naturally, emerging market value stocks. Oh, and they note that while many countries in the emerging or developing world may struggle with the coronavirus crisis and its fallout, some of the biggest members of the MSCI Emerging Markets Index, think Taiwan and South Korea, seem to have coped with it better than the so-called developed world. Yeah, it's probably because they're hedging in crypto. and they've probably been working crypto. And I think South Korea, especially South Korea, they've been, or they had been in the past, very, very pro-crypto. And so I think, and also South Korea and Taiwan, there's been some like effort to erase Taiwan off the map by China. And so I think that they're looking at crypto, and they're also seeing that it's a way to hedge out of this yen hegemony, and they're not entirely sure of how to deal with it, because the challenges of how to maintain their current civil structure on a much lower tax availability is, it's something that they're facing. They've been making money, just like westernized nations, on fees and registrations and all that other bullshit. And so their budgets have increased too. And so now they're facing a withdrawal of that, because there's not as much of the market there available to them. And I think that the strangulation by the yen dominance in fiat markets, at least, is kind of challenging for them. And so, like I said, I think that crypto avails them some unique opportunities as far as how to escape the burdens of the fiat markets. And like I said, South Korea, they've already been really ahead on crypto, and I wouldn't doubt that there's more transition to it as things get kind of uncertain for them. I mean, because they are really dependent on the U.S. And I don't think that we here in the U.S. are in as much trouble as we are apprehension at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainty as far as where to go forward. You have governments that are testing new technologies and new surveillance powers that, frankly, aren't really even legal in this country. And I believe that in the not-so-distant future, it is going to cause a conflict where, somebody that they're really dependent on gets caught doing something really bad, and that kind of fucks them up, as far as their legitimacy of their program goes. And this is why I urge people, stay on chain with your Bitcoin. Do not do this fucking second layer bullshit. Because once you do that interface, the fee to get back on chain with your funds, it runs the risk of exceeding your balance. In which case, you can get kind of fucked. But if your funds are on chain and you do have the keys for them, then that's not an issue for you. And so that's why I keep urging people to do things on chain, whether it be Bitcoin or an altcoin, but make sure it's miners that are running the chain, not validators, and it's not some fucking token that's piggybacked on Ethereum or Tron or some other shit. And I'm not saying don't participate in those. I mean, it can be a lot of fun. And I encourage everybody to try shit out. Find out what works for you. But keep in mind, if you are off of the primary network, the layer 1, you're essentially on somebody else's dime. If you're not paying the fees for the initiating and terminating transactions for things like smart contracts and whatnot, then you're not the one in control of those funds. Somebody else is. And that somebody can do something at some time to either make the funds that you have worth less, because some of these tokens they can inflate and deflate as they choose, and you're placing your funds under that kind of trust, and it's not really something that crypto was created for. It was created so that you could hold on to your own funds, and you could verify globally at any time that you are the only one on this planet that has ownership of those funds, and has the capability to control where those funds go and what they are dedicated to. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so until then, I want y'all to trade safe, do your homework, and watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, we're going to have to keep it short and sweet. We're actually at 11 at the moment, but it's tradition. We got to close out with the song. And so it's got to be, where is it? 9 Inch Nails. Where is it? Big Man with a Big Gun, here on Coin Metal Last Dance. Thank y'all for listening again. Y'all have an excellent weekend. Good night.